Welcome to the Hayes CISD Blended Learning video series. In this video, we will explore a specific strategy used by a Hayes CISD teacher that supports student-centered blended learning.
All right, ready? We will graph quadratic functions on the
Coordinate plane.
and use the graph to
Identify
key,
attributes.
if possible, including
X-intercept.
Y-intercept.
zeros,
Maximum value.
vertex. Oh, sorry, I read the else part. And the equation of the axis of symmetry.
So in the class, we saw you using a Google form, and tell me a little bit about why you chose to set up the instruction that you were doing with that form. Like, what was the thinking behind that?
Well, that particular day was just learning about like vocabulary and characteristics of the parabola. And
Okay.
so it was just kind of like one of those things where if I provide the information, then hopefully like they can learn from a text. And because it was just the day before I had actually taught it, and they just seemed to like totally just check out. So it was almost like I had to reteach it again whenever they were doing the work themselves.
Ms. Castillo has identified a problem. The students are checking out during direct instruction and may not understand the content. She needs an alternative content delivery method to give additional opportunities to engage with the concepts and increase student agency.
So it's like, okay, let's have you like be guided through that. And then I use the Google form to help check for understanding.
So I'm going to be explaining number 13 because now we have a coefficient with both of the x's. And so I just want to kind of touch base on that by explaining it again. So we're still using the foiling method. Everything is going to be foiled. We're multiplying, all right? So I'm going to be taking 4x and I'm multiplying it times 4x right here. So if I were just to focus in on just coefficient to coefficient, 4.
So if they were to enter something in, then they would know whether or not they got it right. And if they didn't get it right, then they have to like maybe go back and read the text again or look at the picture to see what to do.
A unique design characteristic of Ms. Castillo's Google form is that it holds students accountable to actually learn the concept or process. Opting out by just putting an answer and moving on is not an option. If students get an answer wrong, the expectation is that they go back and review the provided resources in order to learn the concept. Ms. Castillo includes questions where students actually have to demonstrate understanding using Desmos and submit a picture as an artifact of their learning. This not only exemplifies rigorous learning expectations, it places the ownership of learning the material on the students. They have to be active learners rather than passively expecting the teacher to fill their bucket.
And those text and pictures that you're talking about, those were the links that were embedded in the form?
Yeah. So I either put a picture that was already on the form or a link that they can click onto where I already did the research that I've specifically wanted them to see. So, and normally like they need to see, definitely have to see a picture, and then sometimes they could read a text so that to get that vocabulary.
Okay. How do you feel like this helps students, like give them choice and control of their pace in the class? Like, how does that, or does that even factor into this?
No, it does. And it's definitely like I've even used the form sometimes for differentiation. So it's like some students who pick up things really, really quickly, they don't have to do the repetitions over and over again. If they can like get the first two correct, it sends them off to either learn the next objective immediately or gives them more of a rigorous problem, as opposed to the student who's struggling. And then it will take them to do like more practice on it to understand. Like there'll be times where I'll do a Google form and I will be lead teaching with my students, but some of them prefer to just work by themselves. And so like I'll have a video of me teaching, and I'm like, for students who want to work on their own, and they just like will look at it, they'll click it. And so by the time that my students that like to see me when I'm teaching, like they're probably already done before all of the rest, but that's because they go pretty fast. So
To share the workload of creating instructional videos, Ms. Castillo partners with other teachers on her team. By leveraging a team approach to the instruction, teachers not only decrease the time investment needed, they also open up other possibilities for student grouping and differentiation. Let's fit these pieces together. By creating short instructional videos with her team, Mrs. Castillo is able to offer students a choice in how they receive and process the instructional material. Some students prefer to see and hear her instruction directly, while other students prefer controlling their pace with the use of instructional video. This allows them to process the material independently and speed up or slow down as needed. She has found that some of her faster learners prefer this method.
but yeah, it's definitely like a pacing thing. And then the way that they were sitting that day, they were in groups. So they were able to kind of like talk and help each other as well too. So if a student is definitely explaining to another student, like, hey, this is where the vertex is, or it's where it crosses the y-axis for the y-intercept, like that language, I think, is way better than me having to like, hey, everybody, look at the screen. Can you see this? And point to it, so.
Talk to me a little bit about having a class with so many different levels and how that has worked out for you. How have the students adapted to working with so many different partners? While we were in the room, there were 2 to 3 different partner changes. How did you set that up, and how are they getting comfortable with that?
Man, like some of that stuff too is just like blowing me away because even though it's like, yeah, we are catering to different levels, right? So, my low levels, I'm actually like really trying to promote using more of like our Desmos device for them to solve, which is crazy because I was actually listening to a conversation where I had like a low level with a high level student, and the high level student had some problems with the calculation part. But then the low level student was like, dude, if you just type this in and you look at it here, then this is the answer, which was crazy because it was like Mr. Low was telling Mr. High how to get like the problem correct. And then the kid was like, oh yeah, totally. Like, I mean, he caught on to it like that, And then I later touch base with him because I'll hear that conversation and be like, okay, so the calculation step is like, you got to distribute first really fast. And that's where you can get that, like that sort of sidestep there. But no, it's a lot of fun. Like they were used to like, oh, that's my group today. And then they go, or I'm using that one app where like the group or the partner is always changing. And so when I first introduced it to them, we would do like silly stuff, like tell them your dog's name or something, like so that way they can at least get like, used to one another. And even so, like some of them still are like, who is so-and-so, but they're getting to learn who each other are. And so as long as there's always like a sentence stem that's up, there's never an awkward moment where they're just kind of like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do, because at least I can refer them to like, okay, look at the screen. And that like helps promote that conversation piece. So they definitely like getting up and talking. And that class is particularly really good, but it's just kind of like, they know that, okay, time's up, go back to your seat, about to call a random name. That helps too. So they become well adjusted to it.
There's a couple different structures that you have in your class. Tell me about the phone chart.
Oh yeah, that thing.
Y'all decide that as a team? What was
Yeah, so our team, they had a lot of students were just cheating all the time. And so they were either snapping like the answers to one another, taking pictures and just utilizing that. And then not particularly in my class, although maybe I didn't catch it, but other students were using like Mathway. So they were getting online and doing that sort of thing. So just as an overall department, we decided that we were going to completely take phones away, and we explained that to them, even explain that like, this is an integrity thing. This is building on character as well, and it's because of the cheating, which I only got one lashback, like, God, you're taking the phone, but it was because he used Mathway or whatever that app is. And so he was a little upset about that. But explaining to the kids too that it's like, I have no idea where you are on the scale. If you're always cheating, I don't even know if you're ready for the test,
Right.
So then, we all got that, like that little phone cubby thing. So they all have a number. And so that's how I take attendance. So they know to come in, put their phone in there, and then the numbers are listed. It was so funny. Like I had this one kid yesterday. He was like, how do you memorize our numbers? And I'm like, dude, like the number chart's up there. Like, come on, man. But I look to see what phone's missing to take attendance. And then, and it's funny too, because some of them will be like, oh, I don't got it today. I got in trouble, So it's like, so I like at least know like who's in trouble or who doesn't have phones. And when it shows up, I'm like, yeah, you're out of trouble. Good job, And then it's gone like the next time they show up. But yeah, it totally helps. It alleviates distraction too, just because, teenagers in itself, it's like if they see some text or some sort of post and it like devastates them. And it's also kind of like an awards depending on the class. So some classes, I never let them get their phones. The class that you observed, they're pretty mature enough to like, I finished my work, can I have my phone? Yeah, yes, you can. So I've never run into anybody who like races to finish their work to get their phone because we're doing so much in the class anyways. I mean, most of the time they don't finish their work, but yeah, it's kind of like a little reward at the end that they get to have it back. So.
Okay. If there were anything that you wanted to tell a teacher who's like, hey, I want to start using differentiation with Google Forms, or even just building in scaffolds to forms with the answer checks, what advice, what have you learned that could save some other teachers time?
Ooh, saving time. You have to put in the time. You're saving, where teachers are saving time is in the reteaching.
Okay.
Like you will have to put in the time to make the form and you get a lot better at it. But like when you set the setting on to where like that kid cannot move forward until they get it right, you're catching them in the moment, as opposed to that student making the same mistake over and over again. And then them making that mistake on the test and then you having to reteach it and have them unlearn. So that's kind of like where I find myself saving time is meeting that, but also allowing them to like kind of process on their own, because several students, they're not so quick now to ask me for help, which is crazy, because before I started using the Google form, they're like, is it right? Is it right? Is it right? And that was the reason I got it, was because I couldn't be everywhere to be like, yes, that is right. So once now that they see that it's wrong, they take self-initiative to try to figure out, okay, what do I need to do before they even ask me to be like, all right, Allison, like, I can't get it. I'm not doing something. And then I just fill in the little gap. So, yeah, it is an art. I'm still learning it. So
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Hope you have a great afternoon.